we covered a little bit about BYU, and Oklahoma State. Obviously, their situation's been pretty turbulent. 1-7 this year. Doug Meacham has been their interim coach, and results obviously haven't gotten better with the now they're on their third string quarterback. Rodney Fields hasn't been playing to a high level, and now they're going to be on their first head coaching search. About general thoughts on the head coaching search, or what do you think that they're going to be looking for in terms of somebody to bring back some stability against the water?
Well, there's some rumors out there. I have my favorite candidate. The guy that seems to have bubbled up to the top is Zac Robinson, who's from Denver, Colorado, actually Littleton, Colorado. I've met his parents at a restaurant before while he was still playing quarterback for Oklahoma State. He is now the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. He's been around a bit, but I think he'd be a really good choice for them. He knows Colorado, which is a recruiting area. He knows Oklahoma very well because he was there for 4 years. And I think he'd be a really good choice for them. I'm not sure he'll want to do that. And then you have to think about who else could be there. And a couple of people they're talking about. One is G.J. Kinne, who's the head coach at Texas State. And he's a young guy. He's like the second youngest head coach in Division I. He just last year signed a 7-year deal trying to keep him, and his record's 19-14, and he's gone to 2 bowl games. So he's a good young coach. I don't know if he has enough experience to lead a program as traditionally good as Oklahoma State. And then you got Jeff Traylor, who's at UTSA, and Jeff would also be a really good pick. He's been at UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, now for 5 years. And before that, he was at Gilmer High School in Texas, and he was a four-time Division 4A Coach of the Year. So you talk, and then he spent some time at UT and at SMU. So you're talking about a guy who's well known in the coaching circles in Texas, where it was primarily Oklahoma State recruits. And he's 49-23. I think he's been to 4 bowl games. And I think it would be a nice logical step for him. So those are maybe the top 3 that I see. I think there's 2 other guys that might make sense. One of them would be very surprising, but Bryan Harsin, who was at Boise for a number of years and then left to go to Auburn. And he had great success at Boise, not so great success at Auburn, but now he's the offense coordinator at Cal. So he's got big school coaching experience, and I think he could be a wild card for them, and he's available. And then you got a guy named Tim Polasek, who's at North Dakota State. And North Dakota State is number 1 in FCS. And he also has coached at Iowa and Wyoming. So he's got some big school experience. I don't know if they would take a risk on an FCS guy, but if they were going to, he'd be the guy that would make the most sense for an Oklahoma State. So that's kind of my list. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And, I think one of the most fascinating things about this whole search, aside from them not having to do this in 20 plus years, is the fact that the athletic director, my understanding from I was listening to Caleb Cunningham's podcast. He covers all Oklahoma State, and pretty much what he was saying is Chad Weberg essentially was not working with a contract from June up until now. So I think that was pretty fascinating how that all kind of worked out. But in terms of the list you mentioned, Zac Robinson has been the hottest name just because of the connection to Oklahoma State, the success he had as a quarterback too. Now, obviously, you brought up G.J. Kinne, who's been pretty good at Texas State, and somebody who could be ready to take the next step. But I think another name I'll throw out there too that you didn't mention, I'd say Eric Morris over at North Texas, someone who understands being able to recruit in that area already.
Yeah.
Someone who has a really good offensive mind, somebody who has a similar offensive philosophy to Mike Gundy. But I definitely want to expand a little bit on Bryan Harsin too, because that was definitely a fascinating name that I definitely paused and kind of thought about too, because I think, if you were talking to someone who primarily was watching the SEC, I'm sure you wouldn't get too much love from them. But, he's done a really solid job at Cal this year. I mean, I had some guys on Tell the Whole Damn World podcast. They primarily cover Cal football. And, there was definitely a little hesitation in terms of Hartson, but he's really done a solid job, and that could really be a good fit for him too. So I was fascinated that you brought that up too.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about Oklahoma State. They had Pickens as a big donor, so they should have NIL money. It's not a tier 1 program anymore. I kind of thought when Oklahoma and Texas left for the SEC that Oklahoma State would just assume the mantle as the best team.
Yeah.
And suddenly they hit Skid Row here, and the last 2 years have been terrible, and this year's really bad. They're uncompetitive in most games they play. So could you steal like the guy at SMU? Would he leave? I mean, you might be able to sell an AA or ACC coach because they're worried about the conference dissolving in 4 years. So maybe there's someone there that you could take. Bill Belichick may be available, but that's a joke, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of want someone that's got Texas recruiting roots, and that's why Kinne makes some sense. Those guys are in, or like you said, the guy in North Texas, they're right there. I mean, North Texas, Dallas Metro, and that's some big time football. You got Plano East, a lot of big schools, and then I mean, it's those guys would make the most sense that you could steal, and they'd have a natural recruiting area. Jeff Traylor, same thing. Boy, he's in San Antonio now, but he's coached near Houston. He would be a good and knows all the coaches, and so the coaches help influence where the kids go. Of course, money helps nowadays, but still they listen to their coaches, and they'll go where they think they're going to have the best chance for success.
Yeah, exactly too. Because I remember when I was previewing Oklahoma State a couple months ago, and I saw that they hired Todd Granaham, I was immediately in my head, I was like, this seems like a Mac Brown situation in the sense that he kind of just hired two of his friends to kind of be the coordinators as opposed to who could be the best person for the job. Now, granted, there probably wasn't really too many options out there given the season that they had last year. So it's not like people were necessarily lining up to be Oklahoma State's defensive coordinator, but it kind of felt like that situation where, because I guess Mike Gundy's, as much as I love Mike Gundy's interviews and him as a person, he's always been kind of a wild card in terms of what coordinators he brings into, but I guess to some degree that's kind of his downfall, and I guess why they finally decided to say, hey, we tried to give him another year, but it just kind of turned into a dumpster fire too.
Well, I think the NIL has also changed things. I mean, the really good programs adopted the NIL early, and they're spending their money to recruit kids, and he didn't want to do that. And so last year he didn't do it, and it hurt him because the other teams, I mean, Texas Tech this year spent $30 million in NIL money on football team. Well, if you're going to spend $30 million on your football team, you're going to get some really high quality kids, and Texas Tech is really good right now. And so he spent some money this year, but it was more like $8 to $10 million. It wasn't $30 million, and he's been passed by everyone, and he just was slow to adopt. And the good coaches in football and basketball know that you spend money, and then you have to figure out how to you have to know what kind of system you're going to run and who fits your system. So you don't have to go get the $12 million guy. You can go get a $1 million guy or $500,000 guy, whatever. But you better know that when he comes in, he's the perfect fit for your system. And you see certain coaches. I was talking to you offline about New Mexico a little bit. This Jason Eck guy who came from Idaho State had 65 new players this year. And you know, the whole team left when Bronco Mendenhall left for Utah State. And New Mexico was picked for 111. They're now 5-3 and in really good shape to get into a bowl game in their first season. But he figured out how to build culture so in the off season so that New Mexico was ready to go. And they went out and beat UCLA and no one expected that. And they gave Michigan a really good game and no one expected that. And that's really cool. I just don't think Gundy did that. Or maybe Gundy and his team doesn't know how to do it, or Gundy it's my way and my system, and you all going to do it this way, and didn't fit the personnel right. But they're going to be 3 or 4 years of trouble before they come back, or maybe 2 years. I mean, if you look at the job that Fritz has done down in Houston, Houston was terrible 2 years ago. Last year, nothing great shakes. I think they won 3 or 4 games, and this year they're 7-1. So it can be done in a couple of years, but you got to have you got to have an NIL manager, a CEO who's recruiting the kids all year round and using money and whatever else they got to get them to come.
Yeah, exactly. Because as many situations as you have, as many Indianas and New Mexicos you have, you also have the North Carolinas of the world too. So it's just kind of where do you find that balance between, this is the amount of time you're supposed to have versus, okay, we just have to take you off the leash and let you go type of thing.
Yeah, and Gundy had a good run. He will coach again somewhere. I don't know where. He may take a year off. He may be an analyst for Fox Sport or ESPN, but I'm highly confident that he will be coaching young men again in some capacity in the next 2 years.